everyone. I wanted to say good morning. Um, I'll give people a couple more seconds to roll in here real quick. Just a reminder, if you are unmuted when you come in, please mute yourself. All righty. All right, I'll go ahead and get started and people can continue to trickle in as we go. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the GCA Spring Forum today. Today is going to be a little bit of a different forum as it's going to be a little more open-ended. We have a couple updates from us in GCA, and it will be followed by kind of an open Q&A on grants in the new FT system in Workday with our Director of GCA, Juan Lopez, the Associate Director of OSP, Amanda Snyder, and a couple representatives from the FT team, Jesse Rice and Stepanka Sirotek. Before we get started, I would like to remind people that the GCA Forum will be recorded and retained for the legally approved retention period under Washington State policy. It is subject to release under Public Records Act or the Federal Freedom of Information Act, and it will be posted publicly on our GCA YouTube channel. Slide decks and recordings for this, as well as past forums, are linked on our GCA Forum webpage. The first update from GCA is that we recently added a page on our website giving key points on FT. The website can be found at the link to the side. The second update is that we have been in communications with our sponsors regarding FT. GCA has been giving updates to the sponsors regarding the changes, as cover letters have been attached on recent invoices, letting our sponsors know that we are making a transition to Workday and what they can expect. Additional communication is in development for awards that are non-invoiced, but this template is provided on our GCA FT page. If any sponsor is asking for an update, you can provide them this. Alrighty, so that was the, like I said, very brief updates from us in GCA. We are now going to move to a Q&A for grants on FT with our director, Juan Lopez, the Associate Director in OSP, Amanda Snyder, and from the FT team, Jesse Rice and Stepanka Sirotek. Before we kick it off, there are a couple of questions that were asked ahead of time, so I will go ahead and go over to that. So our first question was, how will we be setting up sub-budgets, or how will setting up sub-budgets work after go live?
I can take that one on, and I can give somewhat of a general answer, and because some of the functionality is still being built out, but essentially the TPU process is going away. Sage should be handling all of the budget worksheets. So depending on when you know that you need a new sub-budget, aka sub-award line or award line, you will be either doing that during the time of the award setup request. So you can be adding your budget worksheets in there so that they translate into award lines for GCA to set up. Or you can do it during a modification process. So if you don't know at time of award setup, there will be an option where you can go back in and edit that so that you're rebudgeting within your existing budget worksheets, aka award lines, and then GCA will set them up at that point as well. So right now we're still working on that modification process, so it's not fully built out yet, but we will be giving more information as that is more fully functional.
Thank you, Juan. Our second question that was asked beforehand was, how do I get access to Award Portal?
Oh, I can take that question. This is Cheryl. So Award Portal is going to work exactly like Grant Tracker. If you're a UW employee and you've got a UW Net ID, you have access. There's no special Astra accesses or authorizations needed. Just once we get the link, click on it and pop on in.
Awesome. Thank you, Cheryl. So that concludes our 2 questions that were already asked. Whoops, one too many. At this time, we'll go ahead and open it up to general questions. You can use the chat function. We will be monitoring that for questions, or you can use the raise hand function and we will ask you to unmute and ask your question. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and stop my share and the floor is all yours.
I do see there's a question in the chat about EGC1 and new EGC1 for each year.
Yeah, so in the UW FT training for SAGE award setup, there was a statement that the same EGC1 cannot be assigned to multiple award setup requests. And that's true. So we know that many times we currently, there could be multiple EGC1s. There could be multiple EGC1s for a particular project. And that would be handled kind of like that. Future state, some of those, if we're adding funding to an existing award, we're going to be doing that through the modification process that Juan had mentioned. So, so instead of putting together a new EGC1, you will be putting together a modification request in SAGE in cases where we're adding additional funding. So that's how there will be that one initial EGC1, and then there will be modification requests for supplements and extensions throughout the project.
All right. Thanks, Amanda. So we are getting some good questions here. The next one is, what will GCCR administration look like for April through June payroll months?
I'm not sure I'm the best advice, like best indicated to answer that one. I think we might have to go back to Matt Gardner and post-award fiscal compliance. I think there has been some communication out there about what some of the deadlines are, but I think we'll have to get back to folks on that question so that we can answer that correctly.
All
Oh,
right,
wait,
so
sorry. Juan, can you repeat that question? I might have an answer. That was about, what was it exactly?
So the question, Jesse, is what will the GCCR administration look like for April through June of this year?
Yeah, so I have an answer for that. The GCCRs were going to, so GCCRs and FECs that end on 6/30 are going to be administered through your regular legacy system. So EFEX will still be open for certification through like September, October, and GCCRs just continue to like print and certify them as you do, or like electronically store them. And then starting 7/1, we're going to be moving into the ECC system, which is the new effort system. So that's going to be for both what today are called GCCRs and FECs are all going to take place electronically, and ECC for everything after go live. But everything up until 6/30, even if you're like finishing it up in July or August, like that's all still your regular GCCR process and stuff.
Great, thank you, Jesse. Okay, the next question is, can someone talk about how existing sub-awards will transition into Workday, and specifically sub-awards that might have an expiration date prior to go live, but they'll still need to receive after go live? So kind of like right in the middle there.
So the existing sub-awards will come into Workday as an award line on the award. Sub-awards that expired a year or more prior to go live will not be brought in. And so sub-awards that have been expired for less than a year will still, because there's a potential that they might be reopened. So we will be bringing them all in. We are trying to load the open BPOs right now. So we'll see if that works. People will not have to like re-enter those manually into the system. So we are bringing the supplier contract with the BPO and the open balance on the sub-award line.
Hey, great. Thanks, Stepanka. The next question is really a confirmation that for after go live, you will not need a TransPASU or a TPU form to request a sub budget. It sounds like that will be done through Sage. And Juan, am I correct in saying Sage budget or the worksheets?
It's either the award setup request or through the modification process.
Modification. Great. Next question is, will we be able to do queries in MyFD after cutover?
I believe MyFD is still going to be open for searches for legacy data. I'm not exactly sure when it goes into read-only mode, but legacy data, that should still be true. I don't know if Stepanka or Jesse, you have any more information on the actual dates on that.
No, but we can ask Yelena what the plan is for MyFD. There, it will definitely be open in a view-only mode for a while after go live. But I'm sure when they're pulling the plug for real.
Okay, so we'll be able to use it. It will be probably stale information after go live.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. The next question is about NIH SNAP awards. Will they still be set up for the full project period? And someone has noticed at other institutions, they are not set up for the full period.
We are actually having a conversation about this tomorrow in our within our process transformation team, so that some of your representatives from campus that joined that, we're looking at what the best way to set those up moving forward is going to be, knowing that it is a little bit different, but there probably will be 2 different ways that they're set up just initially, because the converted data is going to get set up with that full award period like we have been doing it now. But there likely will be changes to how we set the new ones up moving forward, just because it might not make as much sense in the workday world as what we've been doing now. So our current system just had some limitations where it made it easier for us to set up that full 5-year period and then just be supplementing it as we receive the additional funding.
Great, thank you. The next question is a MyFD question, but I'll throw it out there. Do we know what the last date to submit transfers might be for MyFD?
I think they announced the Dean's date and I completely forgot what it was. It's very similar to what it usually is, like late July date. So you will still be able to do. Yes.
Stepanka, Dean's Day is July 14th.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it's pretty earlier than, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
There, Lily knew.
Thanks, Lily. Stepanka. Next question is, how will we process deficit transfers in the new system? And is there a training video for this? I can take this one. So in the new system, it's going to be a request through our new award portal, which is the system that will be replacing Grant Tracker. And I appreciate this question because in Grant Tracker, we have a link where you can, if you have a standalone or on a parent budget, there's a link if that budget is in deficit and you can just kind of handle it yourself. And we don't have that in award portal just because of the way award lines are laid out. It just isn't going to pan out, at least not at this time. So it's just sending us, I guess, an email or a ticket through the award portal system, and just let us know where that deficit is supposed to go, and it'll be probably a work tag, and GCA will process that manually for you. Let's see, what is next? Oh, Emily says, thank you for the clear information. Juan, I think that was on for you. Will departments need to re-enter subaward BPOs into the new system, or will GCA handle this? I've heard conflicting information.
I think there's 2 different questions there. When it comes to the converted data, so if you have a subcontract ID, that is going to convert as its own award line into Workday. The PO itself, I think, it's still, and Amanda, you might know this better, but I thought the supplier contract may need to get recreated in Workday so that then GCA can link it to the award line. But I'm not super clear if that's been fully confirmed by procurement yet or not.
That is, I think, what Stepanka was talking about earlier. Excuse me for 1 second. I gotta close my window.
This is where the Muzak would normally play.
Sorry about that. Urban living, somebody was yelling really loudly in the alleyway that my window overlooks. So I apologize. I think that was that the supplier contracts being set up for existing subawards. I think that was what Stepanka was speaking to a little bit earlier, part of what you were speaking to, that we were looking at. We had received some information from procurement or the program had, and you were looking at whether that will be possible for those to be automatically created at the time of go live. Is that correct? Is that still right, Stepanka? Okay.
Yes, but if we, so we will be loading like the shell, the BPO shell and the supplier contract for sure. If we don't, if our load of like the open balances and stuff is not successful, who would be, I think the question is who would be doing the manual entries, right? And I
don't know that we can answer that right now.
Okay.
So future state, not during the transition, but future state, procurement will be creating the supplier contracts based on information that OSP provides to them. So they will have that buyer role for subawards. So we would definitely have to coordinate with them if that's not successful for the transition. So more to come on that.
Karen, that's a good question there. Thanks, Amanda. Next question is, what will the process be for monthly reconciliation of grant budgets?
So it will depend on the departments. We created several reports that might help with that. There will not be a check a box kind of a system that MyFD offers today, but departments can utilize the budget versus actual grant budget versus actual report to do their own kind of a check-ins of budgets, but there will not be like a system enforced required reconciliation of each grant like we have in MyFD today. And am I saying something wrong, Jesse? I think that's where we, there were some discussions on the tools that that Workday can provide to help with that. But it's not like
I think like you'll be looking at your budget versus actual, making sure that that we've demoed in MRAM before, and you'll be looking at the spend and making sure that there's no unexpected expenditures in your grant from the previous month that are going on this month. You want to look at your like payroll allocations to make sure that your payroll for your faculty and non-faculty members that are charging grants are set up correctly. Those are like some of the tasks from like a grant perspective, but I guess that was just some of you. Okay, that's it.
All right, thank you. The next question, has Workday been tested to prove that it can handle various end dates for grants and awards that do not follow the state biennium cycle?
Yeah, yeah, Workday is in place at some other higher ed institutions, and it's standard to have like, you know, we have all sorts of random end dates for awards.
Okay, great, thank you. So how long will MyFD be open for grant budget reconciliation, part one, and part two, and if there are any deadlines? And what if we're not finished with a reconciliation prior to go live? What happens?
maybe
So
Juan,
we-
GCA, or?
We know it will be open till Dean's Day at least for adjustments and transfers.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the MyFD deadlines. What I would say is that for the reconciliations that are really important at the time of go live is going to be for anything that has a financial invoice or report due either July 31st or August 31st. So hopefully you guys are prioritizing those because it's going to be a little bit challenging to get those. If you have any invoices that still need to be paid on those and they're converting, I would just say like make those your priority. Hopefully some of the other ones you're still within your award period so that they'll post after go live. But the ones that are going to be critical are going to be those August and July reconciliations that need to be completed.
Okay, great, thank you. The next question is, assuming that the process is the same for surplus, and this is referring, I think, back to the question about deficits, and the answer is correct. You can send a ticket through the award portal, which will link that question and surplus budget, or surplus work tag to that grant line. So either that or an email, but I think ideal is that we're working through award portal so that all the communications are linked to the grant involved.
And I can just add to that, Cheryl, too, like what we communicated out in one of the emails, our initial going in assumption was that we were going to do some of the like paring down of some of the surplus work tags, but we ended up leaving that in place just because we realized that there might be some duplication of efforts. So our hope is that as you guys are seeing your surplus work tags, you guys are also paring those down, just because we had, based on the FNA rate, you guys may have had multiple, but really going into Workday, all of them are going to be converted at a 0% FNA rate. So as your grant is closing out, the FNA associated with it is going to be taken off the top. So having less of them on your guys' end will make it easier for GCA to say, okay, this is the surplus work tag that we need to do a surplus transfer to. So it will require less coordination, and we can go ahead and move that forward a whole lot easier.
All right, fine. Okay, and this is, I think we're back. So we just kind of maybe probably should say MyFD is not one of the systems that we have a lot about. We know it's super important. So this is another question about the reconciliation process. Is there one that's been established to replace what is done in MyFD? And Jesse, I don't know if I ever asked this, if they can say if Jesse kind of answered the question already.
Yeah, I don't think I fully did. So the reconciliation process, I'll add that it's changing a bit. There's not like a one-to-one tool that looks like what it does in MyFD today. And like kind of the month-end process is going to change a little bit with this concept of the month-end close that the FDM accounting team has been leading. And so that the month-end close process is probably going to encompass some of your reconciliation processes, and then also the things I talked about earlier, like doing the grant BVA and looking at some of those other reports in Workday will also help you look at the month and see what needs action and what doesn't. But let me get back to you with some additional info. I'm going to ask one of our other folks to provide. I know she had a little bit more of an answer, so let me see if she can provide some more info, and we can, I don't know, whoever on the GCA team, we can send you guys some whatever that extra info is.
Yeah, we can include it with the answer. All right, our next question, the deadline for advance extensions, TransPas use, IDC adjustments, et cetera, is June 13th. There was a note I saw that up through June 15th, GCA will process all the deferred items possible, and that any that couldn't be processed by GCA by that date will be deferred until go live. Is this correct? And if so, how will we know if our item has been processed? Will we receive a grant tracker?
Your item has been processed. It should follow the normal notification system that we have now. So if you're processing like an advanced stage, you should be getting that stage notification. If it's a TPU, you should be getting a notification through grant tracker, I believe. It's the way that we send out the notification that it's been processed. So that should also be the same. If it's not processed, we will probably be holding on to the GCA will be holding on to those and returning any of the stage items back to OSP. For the ones that are coming in like TPUs possibly that couldn't get processed, we should be notifying the department that we were unable to process that.
Thank you. Will BPO numbers still exist in future state? And will they transfer, if they do, will they transfer over with the same title in Ariba? Jesse or Stepanka?
So they will exist and we are transferring them over, like the BPO number will be the reference number, the integration ID of each BPO. Workday will assign like a unique supplier contract number. The BPO number will stay. What will happen in other areas, or like they will still continue to get created? I don't know what the system that's replacing Ariba and how those numbers will be, like what will be the naming convention and numbering convention there. But for the converted data, yes.
Great, thank you.
And you can look up by, like, it will be the reference ID of each of the BPOs. So you can find it by that.
Okay, great.
Same with the supplier contract ID that comes in the naming convention of the award line. So you can find it by your SC and, you know, the 4 or 5 digit code. Amanda, 4 or 5 or both? Okay, yeah.
Could be either, but usually at this point, probably 5.
And we're in the 5s now, yes.
All right. So the next one is kind of a request, Jesse, on the reconciliation process. If we could, I think people would really appreciate if they could get kind of like some recommendations or guidelines in how to handle this in the new process or in the new system, because it's just something really different.
Yeah, and I think that, I don't know if people here have been involved in some of those month-end like close processes that the FDM has been like hosting, but some of that has been covered there. And then some of the more grant specific pieces that I spoke to exist, and then we'll provide some more info when we get an answer.
Yeah, kind of some best practices or how it's expected to work and look.
Yeah.
All right, I think this one is, will we be able to look at expenditures by month?
And so, yes, you will be able to look at expenditures by month. So if you go look at the MRAM recording from, I think it was in April, we did a demo on the grant budget versus actual report, which lets you look at every month or every year and look at all your expenditures. And it also shows you your budget in one column, so you can see what you had budgeted, and then you can see your actual expenditures in another column. And it also breaks out like cost share and then program income if you have program income. So yeah, that's the report for all expenditures.
Excellent. Okay, and on the reconciliation process, there's a lot of curiosity about, well, how does the PI affirm or confirm that they've approved and reviewed the charges? So I think that process definitely.
Yeah, so as far as like the PI approval, and Stepanka, correct me if I say something wrong here, but I know for the like, what is it, the one that the PI is actually in the approval flow? It's like the subcontract.
Subaward invoices, yes.
Subaward invoices, the PI will actually be in the Workday flow. So they'll have to log into Workday and click approve for those specific expenses. The other ones are mostly all the grant managers or the approvers. The grant managers are approving expenses, and then those expenses, I think something we talked about with our PTT, like some of the leaders from the different departments, was that like, even though the grant managers are approving those expenses, like it's on the behalf of the PI, and that those expenses. So like you'd still have to be working with your PI and reviewing things like the budget versus actual and making sure that they have their eyes on and are aware of the expenses that are posting to the grant. But they're not formally going in the system and clicking approve for anything that's not those like subcontract supplier invoices.
Okay, great, thank you. This next question might be more for procurement, but we'll see if anybody knows what has been communicated to our sub awardees about submitting invoices. And what we're kind of looking for is like folks who submit through the Ariba portal or the UW PO email. And I don't know.
I can speak to that. So far, OSP has not communicated to subrecipients, although we intend to. Once we have the new process from procurement on how folks will, specifically how everyone will invoice, and it will go to, I think we're just going to get, since we have the contacts, the administrative contacts for subrecipients in Sage, we will use those emails to send that out, and we will let everyone know once that has gone out as well, so that you know that communication has gone out and you have a copy of it. So once we have that, we'll be sharing that specifically with our subrecipients on top of whatever procurement is providing to all suppliers. So we would like to kind of piggyback on that communication when it goes out, and then be able to kind of forward that and add just, a little bit of extra content text for our subrecipients.
All right, that's great, thank you. Okay, the next question is about, says my work tag list had several columns with balancing unit, cost center level 5, cost center level 7, cost center fund, function, resource, and program. Is there one of these that we can use in place of budget numbers, or do we need to use all of them to search for or change the appropriate budget? I'm going to say work tag or work tab.
So it depends. For grant budgets, the transfer is like 1-to-1. So basically it goes budget number to grant work tag. You can look for your grant budget in Workday by your budget number with a dash. For anything that's not grants, it could be translated into a combination of work tags. So any of your other non-grant funding is like one budget number goes to like a mix of work tags. And this would be better answered by your FDM person. But for grants, it's pretty easy. It's 1-to-1 budget number to grant work tag. Plus we added several more grant work tags on each award, depending on whether they have a sub-award, cost share. Those are their new award lines. But yeah, for existing ones, it's going to be 1-to-1.
And the grant is a driver work tag, meaning that grant automatically will have things like your listing, balancing unit, cost center, like those are tied to the grant. When you type in your grant number, just like if you were to type in a budget number today, so then it's going to pull in all those things automatically. So you don't really have to worry about that so much, as long as if like your grant is funding something, if you put in your grant work tag, those others will come in with it.
Okay, great. Next question is, can you guide us on how to handle GV, OSETs, and other cost transfers for June expenses during July grace period once biennium is closed on June 30th, given also Workday Finance go live?
I can maybe try to answer some of that, because I don't think the process for most of that is going to be changing from any prior bienniums. Like my FT will still be open through Dean's Day, so any JVs or OSIS that you have to do and you have to backtrack to biennium 23, you should still be able to do that. I believe the JV template had in the past, it's had like apply this to biennium 23, so that still gets recorded in the correct biennium. So I don't think there should be any differences for this time around.
Okay, great. Oh, Lily's added some additional key dates for expense transfers in MyFD. July 6th, recommended last day to transfer expenses which require central office review. July 10th is the last day to submit expense transfers which require central office review. July 12th, last day for campus and central office users to submit expense transfers in MyFD JVs. Thanks, Lily.
And we can post that should all be within the procurement is the one who owns the date, but they should have the calendar out there and we could provide a link to that as well.
Great. All right, UWIT-ERA touched on reconciliations during yesterday's BI portal work. Your reporting webinar reconciliations aren't going to be required because each transaction will already have multiple checks and balances in place.
Nice. So that's good extra info. That is somewhat true, but at the same time, like it is still important there's going to be a whole month end close process. And also it's still going to be important on a monthly basis to kind of like review your grants and awards, like your salary, costing allocations, your expenses that have been charged and things like that. But that sort of formal process that you have in MyFD, like this person said too, it's kind of the concept is changing. So it's not just a one-to-one. If can I share my screen real quick? I think maybe it'd be helpful I can show some visuals that go along with the some of the answers. Like, so for the person that asked about the work tags earlier, in case you haven't been at the FT demos, I'm in Workday right now. So I'm on creating a supplier invoice. And if I type in my grant and hit enter, it's like you would maybe type in a budget number and current state. All of these were blank. And because I typed in that grant number, it automatically pulled in my cost center, which in this case is the mathematics research cost center, federal grant resource, my balancing unit function, which is public service on this grant, and my fund, which is the grant fund. So it's for a visual.
So I asked that question. So entering the grant, can you enter the current budget number also, or the grant number?
You can. Yes, you can. Can you X out all the work tags and try that?
Yeah,
you can cancel out of the work
current
tags
state
too.
budget number. Should override them. Can you give us a budget number? Do you have or?
Oh, yeah.
I could find one too.
1 second here. Let's do 664648.
Let's make sure it's in the comment too.
So it looks like it is in there. So Simcox EPA pollution. So then that pulled in, it looks like it's part of the environmental and occupational health, central research, state and local grant resource, grant fund, public service, and the balancing unit is school public health.
Okay. And what about like a self-sustaining budget or an RCR? Would that be the same?
No, those will not.
So how do we search for those?
There's the budget to work tag mapping on FDM Change Network, where you have the current state budget number to which set of work tags it will be translated to. I can pop a link in the chat.
I have that. That's the question though. There's several columns for the self-sustaining.
Oh, what? Oh, okay.
What number
gotcha.
do I enter to search for that?
Which one of them? If it's so the driver is always a good idea. If it's this would be really well answered by an FDM person, but if it's like
again,
a
this
program,
is kind of,
if it's a program, go with the program. Cost center like is kind of the related work tag. So if you have like a program, grant, gift, those are drivers. So that's the one to choose.
Okay.
Program is a good one. Yeah. Oh, program. Yeah, go with that.
Yeah, and just to add why Stepanka and I don't have all the answers. Like we're specifically the grants team for FT, right? And so there's another team that's dealing with those other types of funding that you might have in your department. And we're really concerned with grants and awards and like, how do you have those set up? So that's why we don't have like all the answers for all those.
That answers it though. Thank you.
Okay, but any of the drivers should work. Yeah.
Yeah, Stepanka just knows a lot, so sometimes she doesn't.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. Make sure I didn't lose my spot. Here's a question. We will have access to MyFD to print reports after go live. would it be recommended to run a budget summary right before go live?
This is more like a grant management kind of general question, so I'll let GCA answer. I think it's not a bad idea to run it
I would say it wouldn't hurt.
right to just make sure once we hit once we pull the trigger, then you run it budget versus actual in Workday and see how they align.
Yeah, just note that there's still going to be changes up until the month 25 where the biennium closes out. So there still will be like additions within my FD because that stuff should still be posting there as well. So once that's closed, then it should align by the time we convert to Workday the beginning balances to the stuff that closed out in my FD. So they should be in balance at that point.
We will not be loading live to date balances until early August. So I think August 1st is the freeze for the live to date balances because it's going to be changing up until Dean's Day, and then there will be some time for the data to kind of catch up. Then August 1st, we're freezing the data and loading it sometime in the next couple of days. So you won't see your balances in Workday until August, live to date balances. So like expenditures to date per object code, those things.
All right, thank you. On the budget FDM translation list, what does it mean if the budget is listed but doesn't have a note of not yet mapped? Are these still going to convert?
So this is a FDM tool, and I haven't been in a ton. Does it say not yet mapped? We can check with.
What's Chris, is your budget, is this a grant or is this another kind of budget?
We have a couple. There are some that are in separate divisions that we do pull allocations from, and then we have one that's an internal award from a separate department. And none of them have any of the work tab information, but they do have that budget line listed, and they don't have the note like the other ones do that says that it's not yet mapped.
Okay.
There's a field that says conversion line or something like is converted, something with conversion, and it's a yes or no field. Does it have a yes in that or no? And I don't quite remember the column. I can open it real quickly because I know the ones that have yeses, that means those are getting converted into a set of work tags.
I'm not sure. I think it's different for both of them.
Okay, the internal awards are not sponsored projects, so they're not getting converted as our population of grants with awards. It's like an instruction and departmental research kind of a thing. So those will not be in our population. So I don't want to speak for FDM. Everything right. Stephen Johnson, who is the FDM budget to work tag mapping person on the UW FT program.
For all those like non-grant ones.
Yes.
But if it's a grant that you're looking for, it will get converted unless, what was the cutoff again, Juan or Stepanka? One, like anything closed 1 year before go live won't be converted, right? So
yes, if it has like a continuation that has been closed 1 year or after, or that hasn't been closed more than 1 year, we will convert the entire award. So all the subs and all the priors and continuations for that award, if it has been expired less than a year.
Yeah, so if you were looking for a grant, it will be there in Workday. That's like a new one, yeah.
Right, thanks you guys. The next question I can answer, the question is, will UW Connect replace the grant tracker functionality to send questions or requests to GCA? And the answer is no. We're going to have a new system that replaces grant tracker, and it is a Word portal, and it's going to work the same way that grant tracker does. So you'll be able, you could say that we do tickets or notes, but there's a little ID number with the message, and Word portal is going to work very similarly. It's going to have, we're officially calling them tickets, but it will not be through UW Connect. The next one is, will we be able to see the parent and related sub-budgets in a list in the award portal like we do currently in Grant Tracker? And will we still use the status 1, 2, 3, etc. to indicate the budget status in award portal. So I can also probably answer, I'll start the answer on that. The answer is yes, you will be able to see award lines. So if you have a sub budget now, it will be a new award line. You may see some additional award lines, like, so if you have any subcontracts or cost share, or anything like that, it's going to have its own award. Those will have their own award lines. And then we're going to have new statuses. So I think they say, I don't know the status names all by heart, but I think it says open or.
Yeah, I can, do you want me to share?
Yeah, thanks, Jesse.
Yeah, so we have, Lily's dream is coming true of having a 3.5 status as well. So we have more statuses in Workday. So these are all the life cycle statuses. So there's advanced spend, canceled, closed, closeout in progress, which I think, Lily, that's like the 3.5, right? Where
Yes,
you
that's
see the
3.5. It closes the transactions from campus and allows GCA to start the reconciliation process.
Yeah, then there's expired, which is the day after award actually closes, it flips to expired before it actually gets formally closed out in progress and then closed by GCA. There's also in progress, in pending subaward, restricted from use, and temporary extensions. There's some different statuses. So yeah.
It's like more flavors. Open is status 1, closed is status 4, and then we have more flavors in between. So yeah.
Hey. I've lost my place.
I think the next one, Cheryl, is it possible to add optional?
Got it. Yeah, thank you. You're right. Is it possible to add optional people to the subaward invoice approval flow if people other than the PI can or should review the invoice? Kind of thinking maybe program managers for large programs, etc. So
Yes.
so they can designate or delegate.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Yes, they cannot delegate. Like they cannot say, "Oh, I'm not gonna be doing that." So on my behalf, my grant manager will be doing this. So they can delegate it, but you can add more people.
Yeah, and I think here I can maybe even show. Let's see if I have something random in my inbox that I can show that on. So instead of clicking approve on something, this looks like it's a requisition. I can actually click the related actions here and click add approvers. So also before I would do that, I would maybe want to look at the actual, sorry, I have like a bunch of things open over my screen. Looks like the process history here. I would want to look at the process. Let's see a different type of transaction, like a supplier invoice request. You can look at the process history and you can kind of see, this one doesn't have one. I was trying to find a good one. Anyways, that doesn't matter. So you can kind of see like if there's other people in the steps still left to go, but you can click add approvers here. Then you can look for an additional approver. So like it looks like here, there's some different categories, like you can add a different PI, a cost center associated buyer, things like that. And then you can approve it yourself, and then it will automatically send to the next approver in line. And it won't get, like the transaction will not be like formally posted and processed until the last person has clicked approve.
Okay. I think along those same lines, would a grant manager be able to get a chance to look at the invoice before, like, say, the PI goes in to approve?
Yeah, so I think again, like the PI isn't approving the invoices, just those subcontract ones. And I think the grant manager is the first person in the list, so they would get it first, review it before it gets sent to the PI. Or if you did have we did have a question from another department the other day too that was kind of about this topic. And so if you did have another expense that you really wanted your PI to formally approve in Workday, then, and you didn't want to just send them an email or something, then you could do that add approvers and add your PI even to like whatever other expense that is. and you're seeing it before they do, so you can like make sure that there's no like accounting errors or something that the PI isn't like going to be responsible for checking as much.
Okay. All right. So if a subrecipient does not have an admin contact listed, will the PI listed in SAID be contacted instead?
Yeah, I think this goes back to what I said about OSP reaching out to the admin contacts. I did not realize that it was possible to not have an admin contact in there. So probably we'll just grab both the PI and admins just to make sure we're covered.
Good one. Okay. Can we add other approvers for non-subaward expenses? Much like subawards, it could be beneficial having either the PI or research manager also approve if an expense is quite high.
Yeah, and that was just what I just showed. But in addition, there's some other things that will fire off. I think it's like, I forget what the exact threshold, but maybe if like there's a $5,000 plus expense, it might go to like a buyer for approval, or like also sometimes if something is equipment related, the system based on like your spend category, maybe if like the spend is an equipment spend, then it will know to go to the equipment office to get approval. So there are some built-in approvals for like high cost expenditures and things like that. But you can also, if there's not, you can also add an approver, like add the PI if you'd like to.
Okay. And I think there's definitely a number of questions kind of about approving charges and kind of keeping documentations. We have some where there's concerns about audit and what to keep, like PI approvals and keeping documentation for orders, and packing slips. And the question is, do we not care about that anymore? And I think that that would still be part of the file. And then I think maybe the real question is, is there any way to store any of these documents in Workday?
So
Or is
Workday
that-
is not a document management system. You can add attachments to certain, like in certain places and processes.
Yeah, so yeah, like on a supplier invoice, you can add an attachment, but like Stepanka said, it's really not a document management system. And so if there are like receipts and things, like often those would have to be stored by the department. And then I don't know how the departments exactly coordinate with like what's it called, the like office that stores documents and things like that. But that would be kind of, I guess, similar to whatever you do today with storing those documents. And we still do care about this stuff. And this has been the culmination of conversations between the Workday team and then some of the leaders across the different departments, like some of the heads of the different departments, which we call our like PTT sessions, and as well as like the Office of Research, like Carol Rhodes and all of them. So I don't have the exact answers as far as like policy and why this has changed exactly the way it has, but all of those like important people have been involved in these discussions. And so maybe we could, if one of them, maybe I can get one of them to give like a more formal answer on like, it seems like it's causing some concern, see that like the PIs aren't getting like, aren't in the formal approval process. So could can be a second follow-up item other than the monthly reconciliation process.
And the records office is implementing the Docfinity, the electronic document management system that will integrate with Workday. It will like sweep any attachments created by Workday, like invoices, and store them in Docfinity.
It looks like someone has their hand raised too.
Hey, Eric, do you want to ask away?
So I think, a lot of the questions that people are asking about reconciliation, those are arising from some statements that were made back in February around Valentine's Day by OpMod. And there were a handful of departments that followed up with Eric Winger in a meeting in March regarding all that. And the takeaway from that at that time was that Eric then, I guess, recognized that grant reconciliation is different than state budget reconciliation, potentially, in that meeting we had internal audit and we had Matt Gardner from post-award fiscal compliance, and every penny counts on the federal grants. It's not like a state budget where they can just do a budget to actuals. Okay, yeah, it looks good. It's a different process. He recognized that there has been no circle back yet. So if you folks have a direct line to Eric, I would recommend that you reach out and get some, evidence that are they working on something. So it's either a policy change or it's a process change that's going to happen in Workday to accommodate something that looks more like what we're doing in MyFD. I think that's what everybody needs here is what is happening, because there's been zero communication. So that would probably quiet a lot of the rumors that are going on here or speculation.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I
That
think
sounds like something
we need some information from the source, and that was Eric. So
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll bring it back to Eric. He's our boss, basically. But he's stretched super thin, but we do have check-ins. So definitely bringing this. And I do remember him talking about having these meetings. We were not involved there, so I don't know where it landed. But yes.
yeah, this
good
was right
point.
after he came back from extended illness. So
Oh, yeah.
it wasn't good timing, but there was a lot of concern. And the concern is it's a time-consuming process for the departments. So, and I'm not saying that one way is better than the other. If they want to do a policy change, great. That wipes off a lot of work off our plate, fine. If it's not, though, and we need to retain employees to do those tasks, we need to know about that.
Yeah, and Juan, do you know, like you've been involved in those policy like all of the gyms are being updated right now as well. And I know that Juan has been more involved in that process. Is there any update from that end as far as I guess both things. One is the reconciliation and two is the like PI approval on transactions. Do you know if there's any update on either of those items?
We've been updating the gyms, but we haven't really touched the reconciliation or really made any like significant changes to what the reconciliation process needs to be. Like whatever was there previously hasn't been changed. The process itself isn't going to be documented in the gym, like how you actually do it. So it seems like we just need more structure around what that's going to look like in Workday. So we're hearing you loud and clear. I hear Jesse Stepanka taking it back to Eric. It just sounds like we need a more like formal process or something that we can communicate out better. Okay.
And then Juan, do you have anything to add about the PI approval policies and related to that?
That's not that. As far as I'm aware, that hasn't changed. Also, I know we made it easier with the subcontract invoices because that is a definite place where they have to approve those invoices. The other ones, I don't know, Amanda. I don't think there's really been any changes to PI approvals for any of the other stuff, if it's required or not.
No, I don't. There hasn't been substantial change in the policy.
Great. So it
Thank
sounds
you.
like, yeah, more to come on that. So I also want to note that we're right about at time, but Sarah, I would like have you ask the final question here. And what we'll do is try to answer the other questions afterwards.
I think I just wanted to echo, and thank Eric for providing that context, because I do think what happens is we go into these meetings, we're told one thing. I'm very certain that I was told in a meeting that there would be reconciliation PI approval for grants only. And so then it gets confusing. There's been 2 meetings now that have contradicted that since then. And so it really makes it very hard to plan at a unit level to understand what processes we need to have in place and having the right staff to do the work. So I just want to impress how important it is to have kind of communication that doesn't contradict itself.
100%. And so it sounds like Jesse and Stepanka, you guys are kind of going to take this one on and get some updated information for us. And I think another suggestion that looked really good in the chat was to show how the reconciliation process is going to work, like a recorded demo or something like that for folks once we know.
Yeah,
also,
that's what's happening that's like what a lot of the trainings are, right? And like the people that have been chosen by their departments to be in UAT right now are going through actually some of that in the test system, seeing what the approval flows look like.
I want to address one more thing that was in the chat. How will the grant managers be determined? Because this will be determined in the employee mapping tool that people are now mapping budgets to grant security hierarchies and people to the hierarchies. So that's how the role will be populated. So you are probably contacted by our OCM team to do this. So that's where it will live in Workday. If you open Workday today and you click on any grant and the roles tab, you will see a lot of people there. A lot of them are UW FT program members and testers. So pay no attention to that. They will go away at go live, and it will truly just have the people you assign to those grant hierarchies in the EMT.
Hey, oh, great. Well, thank you, Stepanka, Jesse, Amanda, and Juan. We really appreciate you guys coming in and just being willing to answer anything. I think we got a lot more questions, and we've got to see some trends, so we sort of know where to go with our next steps. For questions that we know we can answer, we will be sure to include them. If it's, there definitely were a lot of questions about MyFD, so we'll see what we can get from those, but we hesitate, to Sarah's point earlier, we don't want to answer questions for other groups because we don't want to give wrong information. So we'll say what we know and go from there. But thank you all for coming. This has been great.
Thanks.
Thank you.